Hey everybody, this is Jeff with the Embroidery Nerd, and today we're going to be digitizing in Chroma Inspire and we're going to sequence text for a hat. Let's jump over here into a new design and we'll start our text. So we're just going to do EMB, NERD, and backspace because I don't want to put a return in there. And there's our text. Um, Right now I'm using the Impress font over here. Our height is 20 millimeters. We're going to change that. We're going to actually look at the physical dimensions and we're at 116 millimeters. Now before I came on here I looked up the conversion and we want to be about 101 millimeters, which is actually 4 inches wide. We're a little over, I want to say a half an inch. Don't quote me on that, I didn't Google that number. This text would go all the way across the hat, and right now, as we hit the slow redraw button, and you watch it sew out, it starts on the left and it moves in from there and goes across to the right. Now on a flat, that's not really a big issue, but when you get to a hat, it causes problems. Really what we're concerned about is right in the middle of the design here is going to be the center seam of the hat, and we want to push fabric away from the center seam of the hat and up from the center seam of the hat. On text this size, the up is a little bit less important as the out, but when you're doing it, you want to go up and out. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do to sequence this for a hat. So right now, if we select it all, you can see it's one text. We can right click on it and we can say break up text. Now that's going to give us each letter individually. Now it's still in the same sewing order. So if we run through our sewing video there, it starts on the left and moves all the way to the right. What we want it to do is we want it to do the inside to the out. So we'll take the B and we want to move the B to the top of the sewing order. And in this, that would be in the order, and we're going to go to the back of the sewing order. Next, we can do the M if we would like. So let's go ahead and move that one back. So we go to order and we'll go backwards one. So now if we run the sew out, we have the M at the end and then the B. And so I actually sequenced it incorrectly. That's why I like to do slow redraws on everything. So I need to move the B to the very back. And so it's going to sew the B and then the M and then the E. And this is the order that it's going to sew in. Now let's run our slow redraw again, and you'll see that it's going to do the B first, and then the M, and then the E, and then it's going to go across to nerd. Now, this may work okay, but really I want a little bit more control over where my letters start and where they stop. So let's hit the slow redraw button once again, and we'll look at the B as it's going to sew first. It starts right here and goes up and comes around the top and then comes over there. So if I really want to digitize this, bottom out or inside out, bottom up, we need to change where that start point is. Now if we click on it and we hit the node edit tool, we get a little bit of the start stop here. We can try and move it. It doesn't really move it that much. So what we'll do is we'll add a little bit to it. So I'm going to grab my run tool right here and I will start right here and I'll come down a little bit, control clicking for round points, left clicking for straight points. I'm going to come up a little bit and we're going to go around actually for fun. Change it up, come back down, and we're going to come back around. So I can tell you that my letter starts right here because we looked at that on the slow redraw. So we'll hit start and it says where do you want this to start at, and I want it to start right there and I want it to end right there. And now we have our run stitch on top of the B. Let's go ahead and change the color of it so that you can see it. And there it is. So let's move that run stitch in the sequence all the way to the top. And we need to go up one more, and so I'm just going to hit order and go all the way to the back. So now when we run the slow redraw, you'll see that it starts and goes around, and then it comes and does the B. Our next letter is going to be the M, and if you watch, it's going to start over here on the right and work its way, or the left I should say, and work its way to the right. Let's go ahead and we'll manually digitize kind of an underlay to get that to start on the right and go to the left. So again, we'll select our manual run tool, and we'll start right here at the bottom right, and we'll go up. I can hold down the shift key, and that'll lock it to a straight line, and I'll go there, and I'm going to come over a little bit and come back down and go back up and come across and come back down, and I'm going to end right about there. We're going to set our start point right here and our end point right there. Let's go ahead and change the color again to something that we can see, and as you can see, it now moves that way. So what will happen is this will stitch going up, over, down, up, over, down, and then it'll start on the actual M letter itself. Let's move this up in the sewing order. We're going to put it right after the B and before the M. And finally, we'll go with the E. We'll jump back. We're going to do the same thing, because if we do the slow redraw, you'll see that the E, let's jump over here to the E, is going to start kind of there on the bottom and go up and around. So let's digitize that as well. I hold down the control key and I scroll out, and when I hold down the control key and scroll, it moves away from my mouse, or if I zoom in, it moves towards my mouse. If I don't, it just moves in and off the center, and I prefer that. You can hit the spacebar key, and that'll turn your little mouse into a hand. And while holding down the spacebar key, you can click and drag, and that'll pan. We're going to grab our run tool, and we're going to start right here on the E and move over. I'm going to hold down the shift key, lock it to the axis. We'll do the E, and I'm going to come down, and if I remember right, we'll find out if I'm wrong, our E starts right there. So we'll set our start point here at the bottom and our end point right there, and we'll go ahead and we'll change the color of that again so you can see it, and we'll move it up in the sewing order before the E. So now let's go ahead and we'll do view, and we'll take our zoom and we'll fit the window, and that'll bring us kind of in the middle here. Let's do a slow redraw, and you'll see that we're going to start with our underlay for the B, and then we're going to do the B, and now we're going to move over next to the M, and we'll do the M. And then finally we're going to come over to the E, and we'll do the E. And then we'll come over to the text on the right hand side. Now we don't really need to worry about the text on the right hand side because it is sewing from the bottom up and the inside out. And it's digitized that way by default, so we don't necessarily need to worry about it here with the impact font. I think it's the impact font. I'll have to double check. Let's grab it. And let's look at our font that we're using. It looks like, we'll check it this way by pretending we're going to do another font. It's the Impress font. I'm sorry. But with the Impress font, it starts here and it works its way up and out. So we don't necessarily need to do that much with the right hand side. We just need to worry about the left hand side. So the other things that you may need to worry about is if we adjust the kerning. So let's grab onto the nerd and we'll move it towards the left. Now as I grab it, you can see it moves all over. If I hold down the shift key, it's going to lock it to the axis and keep it lined up. So if I move over to the left a little bit, now this is our kerning, the distance between our letters. If I move it over a little bit, that changes where the center of the design is. And an easy way to check for us where the center of the design is if we select everything and we make sure that its position X is 0 and its position Y is 0. I'm going to go back up to our view and zoom, and we'll bring it back in to fit the window. So now we have our 0 right here. And we can see that we're still going to split the seam of the hat. If we did end up with a problem where we shifted the design over, for instance, or we had something actually in the middle on the seam, we now have to account for the way that the seam is. On a hat, you have two ridges and a valley in the middle of the seam. So if we had a satin stitch that needed to split the seam, we would want to put it so that the seam runs right down the middle of the satin stitch. If our design is moved over to the, let's just move our N over for now. If we move our N over here, what's going to happen is these stitches here are going to sink down in that little valley, and it's not going to look proportional. This will actually look a little bit thin right on this specific satin. And there's a couple of ways that we can combat that. The easiest way is to shift your design one way or the other just a little bit in the direction so that you actually split the seam there. We're going to go over how to deal with the seam in more of a fill later on in a separate video, but this is how I would deal with it on text. I would just shift the text to the right a little or to the left a little to deal with that seam. A lot of times the little bit that you're going to shift it, you're not going to see it. The other thing that I'm going to do before I would export this file to the machine is I would go here and I would select my start and stop point by going to advanced. When I do hats, I really like to do my start and stop point at the bottom center of the design. And the reason for that is when I'm lining the design up on the hat and I'm moving it down closer to the brim, I know that my presser foot on the design is lined up with that point. And so when I lower my presser foot down, I know that it won't go any lower than that, and I feel that I can get closer to the brim of the hat doing it that way because I'll know where my design is going to stop at the bottom. If my design is centered, so let's go ahead and change this to the center, then I'm guessing this distance. So this is where my presser foot will be on the machine when I'm trying to line up the design, and I'm trying to guess how far down my design is going to go to make sure that I'm not going to hit the hoop. So that is why I like to change it from center to bottom center. And that is how you would reorder and re-underlay for a hat. This is Jeff with the Embroidery Nerd. If you like the content you're seeing, please give us a like and subscribe below, and also check out our Facebook group. Thank you guys, and have a wonderful night.